Have you ever wondered why the Israel-Palestine conflict has persisted for so long? This isn't just a simple disagreement between two nations. Rather, it's a deeply rooted issue, woven through with threads of religion, identity, land ownership, and a history that's as complex as it is long. The question of why is not easily answered, but it's one we must attempt to understand. So let's turn back the pages of time, delve into the annals of history, to understand the roots of this conflict. The seeds of this conflict were sown in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It was during this period that two significant movements emerged: Zionism and Arab nationalism. Zionism was born out of an age-old desire amongst the Jewish people for a homeland of their own, a place where they could escape the widespread anti-Semitism that was rampant in Europe. This longing for a homeland was largely driven by the philosophy of Theodor Herzl, who is often referred to as the father of modern political Zionism. Parallel to Zionism, the Arab nationalism movement was also gaining momentum in the Arab world. This was a collective expression of a shared identity among the Arabs, rooted in a common language, culture, and historical heritage. The Arabs of Palestine sought independence and self-determination, just like their Jewish counterparts. The next pivotal event in our story is the Balfour Declaration of 1917. It was a public statement issued by the British government in support of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This declaration, however, also mentioned that nothing should be done to prejudice the civil and religious rights of the existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. This dual commitment, as we would see later, proved to be a source of continuous tension. Finally, we arrive at the British Mandate for Palestine, a period spanning from 1920 to 1948. The mandate was a legal instrument, approved by the League of Nations, that gave Britain the responsibility to administer Palestine and establish the Jewish national home as stipulated in the Balfour Declaration. However, managing the competing nationalisms of the Jews and Arabs proved to be a daunting task for the British. The period of the mandate was marked by widespread unrest, violent riots, and a growing divide between the Jewish and Arab communities. These events set the stage for the strife that was to follow. The seeds of conflict had been sown, and the soil of Palestine was ripe for a bitter harvest that would shape the course of history in the region. Post-World War II, the conflict escalated into a full-blown crisis. As the embers of war cooled down, the flames of a new conflict were being stoked in the Middle East. The focal point? Palestine. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into two separate states, one for the Jewish people and one for the Arabs. The plan was born out of a desire to address the growing tensions between the two communities cohabiting in Palestine, and to provide a safe haven for the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust. However, it was met with mixed reactions. The Jewish Agency for Palestine accepted the plan, viewing it as a stepping stone towards their long-cherished dream of a Jewish state. The Arabs, on the other hand, rejected the plan, seeing it as an infringement on their right to self-determination. This disagreement over the partition plan triggered the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The Arab states, refusing to accept the partition of Palestine, launched a military campaign against the newly declared State of Israel. The conflict was fierce and brutal, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Despite the odds, Israel emerged victorious, and the map of the Middle East was redrawn. The establishment of the State of Israel marked a significant shift in the conflict. It signaled the end of the British Mandate for Palestine and the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the region. However, the end of the war was far from a resolution. The aftermath left deep scars and unresolved issues. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians became refugees, and the borders of the new state were a matter of contention. The armistice lines drawn at the end of the war became de facto borders, but they were not recognized by the Arab states. The aftermath of the war laid the groundwork for future disputes. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War, far from being the end of a conflict, was merely the start of a long and complex struggle. The seeds sown during this period would grow into the towering tree of conflict that we see today. The following decades were marked by wars, uprisings, and peace processes. This period in time was no easy walk in the park. It was a relentless sequence of struggle, of conflict, and of attempts to make peace. Let's first talk about the Six-Day War. It was a confrontation that took place in June 1967. Israel, in a preemptive strike, managed to obliterate the aerial defenses of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, all in less than a week. This swift victory enabled Israel to seize control of the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. The repercussions of this war are still felt today, as these territories remain disputed. Now let's move on to the Yom Kippur War. This took place in October 1973 when Egypt and Syria launched a coordinated attack against Israel on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Despite being caught off guard, Israel managed to repel the invaders after a bitter struggle, but the war ended up causing a significant shift in the regional balance of power. Then came the Oslo Accords in the mid-1990s. These were attempts to establish a peace process and create a framework for resolving the ongoing conflict. These accords led to mutual recognition between the Israel government and the Palestine Liberation Organization. However, the peace they promised proved elusive, as both sides struggled to fulfill their commitments. Lastly, the intifadas, or uprisings, were periods of intensified Palestinian protest and violence, which further deepened the divide. The first erupted in 1987 and the second in 2000. Both intifadas led to heavy casualties and hardened attitudes on both sides. These events further complicated the situation, making a resolution even harder to achieve. The struggle continues. The peace processes stagger on, often thwarted by fresh outbreaks of violence. The history of this conflict is a testament to the difficulty of resolving deeply ingrained political, religious, and territorial disputes. But it's also a reminder that the quest for peace, however challenging, is a pursuit worth striving for. The present scenario is a complex web of political, religious, and social challenges. Let's unravel this web, starting with a key issue: the status of Jerusalem. This city, sacred to three of the world's major religions, is a bone of contention between Israel and Palestine. Israel proclaims Jerusalem as its undivided capital, while Palestinians claim East Jerusalem, occupied by Israel since 1967, as the capital of their future state. Our next thread leads us to settlements. These are Israeli communities established in territories occupied during the 1967 war, namely the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. The international community largely views these settlements as illegal under international law, but Israel disputes this. The settlements, home to over 600,000 Israelis, pose a significant obstacle to peace. They eat into the territory envisaged for a Palestinian state, complicating the viability of such a state. The two-state solution is another cornerstone issue. It proposes Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace, with secure and recognized borders. However, the expanding settlements, coupled with political division among Palestinians, make this solution seem increasingly unfeasible. Yet, alternatives like a one-state solution raise their own set of challenges, including the risk of undermining Israel's identity as a Jewish state, or denying Palestinians their right to self-rule. In this intricate mesh of issues, other factors like security concerns, recognition of statehood, refugees' right of return, and economic disparities also play their part. The situation is further complicated by external influences, with various international players having their own stakes and perspectives on the conflict. These issues continue to fuel the conflict, making peace a distant dream. So, what have we learned from this exploration of the Israel-Palestine conflict? We've traced the roots of this dispute, journeying back to the late 19th century when the Zionist movement, a Jewish nationalist campaign, ignited the first sparks. A quest for a homeland in what was then Ottoman-ruled Palestine, intertwined with the aspirations of the indigenous Arab population, set the stage for a conflict of epic proportions. We witnessed the pivotal moments that escalated this discord, notably the Balfour Declaration of 1917, the establishment of Israel in 1948, and the subsequent wars and intifadas. Each event, a chapter in a narrative that has been inked with strife and struggle. Fast forward to the present day, and we see a situation fraught with complexity. The political landscape is a maze of conflicting ideologies, territorial disputes, and human rights concerns. The everyday lives of the people, both Israeli and Palestinian, are marked by the scars of this ongoing conflict. Yet, amidst the turmoil, there are glimmers of hope. There are individuals, organizations, and nations striving for peace, for a resolution that respects the rights and aspirations of both Israelis and Palestinians. Understanding the past and present of this conflict is crucial to finding a solution in the future. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to M BUZZZ for more videos like this. Your support means the world to us. Until next time.